Picture this. You're walking down the street, minding your business, not bothering anyone. And suddenly, BM, you're a criminal. Not because you stole something, not because you hurt someone, because of your clothes. Welcome to Denmark, where 200 women turned an entire country upside down. Look, I know what you're thinking. Another video about politics? Pass. But hold up, because this story, it's got everything. Shocking statistics, blatant hypocrisy, women being liberated, straight into house arrest, and a plot twist that'll make you question everything you thought you knew about progressive Europe. Before we dive in, do me a solid, hit that subscribe button. Because if this video gets 10,000 likes, I'm dropping the France expose next week. And trust me fam, that one's even crazier. Alright, let's get into it. August 1st, 2018. Denmark passes the burqa ban. Official name: Act prohibiting wearing of face-covering clothing in public. Catchy, right? Really rolls off the tongue. Here's what it does. Anyone caught covering their face in public gets slapped with a fine of up to 10,000 Danish kroner. That's about $1,500. For clothes. Now, the Danish government had their talking points ready. Point 1. It's about security. We need to identify people. Point 2. It's about integration. Face coverings prevent communication. Point 3. And this is where it gets rich. It's about women's rights. We're liberating oppressed women. Okay, cool story, Denmark. Let me ask you something. How many women in Denmark actually wore the full face veil before this ban? Take a guess. Go ahead. 5,000? 10,000? Surely it must be a lot to justify a national law, right? Try 150 to 200. That's it. That's the number. In a country of 6 million people. Let me do the math for you. That's 0.003% of the population. Denmark really said, you know what our biggest problem is? These 200 women. We need a whole law for this. Like, imagine your school has 2,000 students, and the principal creates a new rule because 3 kids wore something he didn't like. That's not policy. That's a tantrum with legal paperwork. But here's where it gets juicy. Because technically, and this is important, the law bans all face coverings. Not just burqas, not just niqabs, all of them. So that means balaclavas? Illegal. Ski masks in the middle of winter? Illegal. Scarves wrapped around your face during a blizzard? Believe it or not, illegal. Even those pandemic masks we all wore. Technically illegal under this law. So obviously, the Danish police are out here arresting everybody, right? Skiers, motorcyclists, protesters, people with bad colds. Everyone gets fined equally? Nope. Guess who's getting stopped? Guess who's getting fined? Guess who's being dragged out of public spaces? If you said Muslim women exclusively, congratulations. You win a prize. The prize is disappointment in humanity, but hey, it's something. Listen, I'm not making this up. There's documented case after case. A woman named Sabika spoke to reporters. You know what she said? They say they want to free me, but they've imprisoned me in my home. I can't go shopping. I can't take my children to the park. How is this freedom? So let me get this straight, Denmark. You wanted to liberate women by making it illegal for them to leave their houses? You wanted to empower them by taking away their choices? You wanted to help them integrate by forcing them out of public spaces? Make it make sense. I'll wait. Now, you might be thinking, okay, it's just Denmark being weird. No big deal. Wrong. Because Denmark? They're not alone. This is a movement across Europe. France banned the burqa in 2011. Belgium jumped on board. Austria said us too. Bulgaria, the Netherlands, they all followed. Even Switzerland, neutral, chocolate-loving Switzerland, held a whole referendum and voted to ban face coverings. But here's the thing that should terrify you. It doesn't stop at clothing. Denmark didn't ban burqas and call it a day. Oh no, they were just getting started. Step 2, ghetto laws. They created special laws targeting immigrant neighborhoods with stricter criminal penalties. Same crime, different neighborhood, different punishment. Let that sink in. Step 3, mandatory Danish values instruction. They're forcing children in immigrant areas to attend 25 hours per week of instruction on Danish values, separate from regular school. Because nothing says we value diversity like literal re-education programs, right? I swear I've seen this movie before. It didn't end well. Step 4, and this is where it goes full dystopian. They've proposed limiting non-Western residents in neighborhoods to 30%. Read that again. Neighborhood quotas based on ethnicity. This is an integration policy, fam. This is social engineering with a government stamp. And here's the scariest part. When countries like France, Denmark, Austria, places we think of as progressive, as champions of human rights, when they start restricting religious freedom, it gives permission to everyone else. China points to European burqa bans when the world criticizes their treatment of Uyghur Muslims. India references these policies when defending controversial laws against Muslims. Russia does the same thing. Europe is literally giving dictators the playbook, and they're doing it in the name of freedom. The irony. Okay, real talk for a second. I'm not saying integration isn't important. I'm not saying countries shouldn't have the right to establish some cultural norms. I'm not even saying security isn't a real concern. There is a legitimate conversation to be had about how diverse societies function together. But what kind of society are we building when we tell people, you can be here, but only if you look like us, dress like us, think like us? Because that's not diversity. That's conformity in a rainbow wrapper. Real integration is a two-way street. Yes, immigrants should learn the language. Yes, they should respect the laws. Yes, they should contribute to society. But the host country? They need to make space for difference, for religious expression, for cultural identity. The strongest societies aren't monoliths, they're mosaics. And here's something that gets conveniently ignored. Many of these women chose to wear the niqab. They're educated. They're professionals. They're doctors, teachers, students. They're making informed, autonomous decisions about their own bodies. But apparently, autonomy only counts when you make the choices they approve of. When we take away that choice in the name of liberating women, we're not giving them freedom. We're just replacing one form of control with another. And that's not liberation. That's just different oppression with better PR. The impact of these bans doesn't stay in Europe. It spreads. These policies send a message to Muslims worldwide. You are not welcome as you are. And you know what that does? It fuels extremist recruitment. It creates alienation. It divides communities. It breeds resentment. You want to know how you create extremists? This is how. You tell an entire group of people they don't belong. You force them to choose between their identity and their home. You other them until they feel they have no choice but to retreat into isolated communities. And then you point at those isolated communities and say, see, they don't want to integrate. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy wrapped in xenophobia and tied with a bow of public safety. But here's the plot twist that nobody wants to admit. This was never about 200 women and their clothing. This was never about security or integration or women's rights. This was about fear. Fear of the other. Fear of change. Fear of a Europe that doesn't look the way it used to. And instead of confronting that fear, instead of examining it, instead of working through it, they legislated it. They made it law. Because a culture that can't coexist with a few hundred women wearing face coverings isn't a strong culture protecting itself. It's a fragile culture, terrified of difference, responding to fear instead of leading with principles. So here's the bottom line, fam. Denmark's message to its Muslim citizens is crystal clear. Adapt to the culture or leave. But maybe, just maybe, the question isn't whether Muslims should adapt to Danish culture. Maybe the question is whether Danish culture has the confidence, the strength, and the courage to adapt itself, to make room for difference, to protect minority rights even when they're unpopular, to actually live up to the values of freedom and tolerance that these nations claim to represent. Because let me tell you something, the choice isn't between integration and isolation. The choice is between building bridges or building walls. And right now, Europe is choosing walls. But it doesn't have to be that way. All right, fam, real talk. What do you think? Drop your honest thoughts in the comments. Keep it respectful, but don't hold back. This is a conversation worth having. If this video opened your eyes even a little bit, smash that like button. We're going for 10,000 likes. And when we hit it, I'm dropping the France investigation next week. And trust me, that story is even more insane. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell. Share this with someone who needs to see it. Because the only way we change the narrative is by talking about it. Trust me, fam, and I'll catch you in the next one. Stay informed, stay critical, and most importantly, stay human. Peace.